All right. Good evening, District 40, members and friends. Welcome to our January podcast episode.
Prepared. Enter to Bluetooth.
All right.
All right.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. I hope everyone's been doing great. My name is Althea Latang, and before we get started, I would love to read to you our podcast mission statement. Our mission is to educate and to entertain our listeners and viewers by providing a positive and supportive experience to help listeners and viewers develop stronger communication and leadership skills. How are you guys doing this evening?
Great.
Wonderful, wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. We haven't seen each other since before the holiday. How was your holiday? How was your Christmas and New Year's?
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. As we ended our last segment in December, we had our family gathering with friends. We saw the color purple. We had over 55 people. We had about 55 people.
Wow.
The theater was for 59 and about 55 showed up. It was just so overwhelming and so emotional just to see everybody coming in and enjoying the film and just great conversation. Great conversation.
Amazing. That's amazing.
New Year's
How about
was
you, Michael?
good.
How was your holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was great. We kept it on. We all stayed local here, just enjoyed ourselves and just enjoyed time with family and really just planning for 2024. So excited to be kicking off this New Year's episode here. I'm excited about today's show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you guys will notice that our lovely co-host Scott is not with us this evening, but we do have the esteemed Johnny Randall here with us this evening.
Drum roll, please.
How's it going, Johnny?
Hey, District 40. I'm back on the District 40 podcast. It's been a while since I've been here. Althea, my holiday was great. A lot of relaxation and family time. And now it's 2024. So I'm ready to jump in here and achieve these New Year's resolutions and goals that I set for myself before the new year took off. And I think I'm on a good track.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, my holiday was great. I was actually able to go home and spend some time with my family in the Virgin Islands. So that was awesome to get away from the cold for a little bit. But we're back here. Like Johnny said, we're ready to tackle these goals that we set for the new year. And I'm really super excited to kick off this first episode of the second half of our program year. And we have a pretty special guest with us this evening. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to Michael to introduce our special guest.
Yes, District 40. I am so excited to be introducing our guest to you today. I joined Toastmasters in 2003. And so when I joined in 2003, I heard people talking about, hey, you've got to hear this speech by this guy named Darren LaCroix. It was amazing. So I remember watching Darren's material, watching his World Championship speech as well as other speeches. I remember grabbing some of his resources. I mean, I still literally have old school DVDs, if you can see this right here, from Darren, his Get Laugh More program. I have his On the Stage program. Lots of DVDs and books from Darren. Absolutely amazing speaker, coach, and human being. And so with that, I'm not going to read Darren's bio. I'm going to show a short video, and then we're going to bring Darren to the stage for you all here. So I'm going to share my screen, District 40, and make sure sound is playing. Yes. All right.
After 4 years of business school, I went out and I went for the American dream. I bought a Subway sandwich shop. Oh, yeah. You're all impressed, I can tell. I don't want to brag or anything, but in 6 short months, I took a $60,000 debt, and I doubled that debt.
When we're young, we dream like rivers flow. You dream about everything. I want to be a world-class athlete. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. We have all these big, crazy dreams, and we just go from one to another. We don't think about how. Why as adults do we think about how? Because when we were young, some well-meaning people trained the dream out of us.
Imagine my parents' reaction when, after stretching their budget to help me through college, seeing me fall on my face, and then I come home. Mom, Dad, I want to be a comedian. I was met by silence.
They trained us to think realistically. So if you could go back and talk to that 8-year-old you, what would you say to encourage the young you?
But really, what's the matter?
My mom makes me wear red jackets, and the kids call me Darren the Red Baron. This is the worst day of my life.
Yeah. Kids can be mean. But what if I was to tell you that it's because you went through those hurts that someday you're going to be able to help a lot of people? In fact, that's the credibility you have. You're going to own a Subway shop someday that bombs horribly. But you're going to tell a joke for 20 years that makes people laugh because of that. What if I was to tell you you're going to make people laugh and actually teach people, thousands of people, for a living? What would you say to that?
You're really weird.
Direct sellers, entrepreneurs, anyone who has that big dream that they really want to make happen.
And the world champion of public speaking, Darren LaCroix.
I'll never forget. My dad probably doesn't even remember. He said, I don't care what you want to do. Just be the best. And I am, Dad.
A lot of times we have that dream, but we don't actually take the steps to help us get there. Here's the problem. We have self-doubt. Deep down inside, we have that little voice that says, you're not good enough. You can't do this. Who are you to have that dream? When I was working on my world championship speech, there was 3 times that I was done. I quit. It's over. So I get the feeling. And if you know the story of Jonah and the whale, I felt like I got swallowed by the whale of self-doubt. How about you? What we need to do is have that simple strategy that we can keep working on to keep us going when it doesn't seem like we're making progress.
Did you ever see a little kid just rip apart the perfect gift? I remember being 7 years old, ripping open my Christmas present, and it was a Matchbox racetrack. How cool! This had those little wheels that the car would go through, and it would have enough momentum to go around again to have another breakthrough. For you and I, those breakthroughs are what we need. That gets us to another level where we're never the same. We feel invincible for a little while. And now we just need enough momentum to get us through to that next breakthrough. But if we don't have that momentum, we give up just a little too soon. Along your journey, you're going to come across naysayers. They're essential. They're just a little test to see how serious you are. Just a few words can knock you off track. So 17 minutes to your dream. It's a simple strategy to get you to that next breakthrough.
I don't think that anyone was more scared than I was.
I've gained a couple of new clients out of it.
It really gives you that momentum in your business and in your life.
The accumulation of that effort and that energy that starts to help you see results.
I didn't die.
You will see that growth.
It led me to a dream job. It led me to my podcast, and it led me to my YouTube. And it would have not have happened, none of it would have happened without the encouragement of Darren.
It's doable.
There's no way I could have done that if I had not done this challenge. No way.
They got the breakthroughs they needed to get where they want to go. So I was so pumped. I had to turn this into a book. I had to turn this into a keynote speech so I can do what I love and help people get the breakthroughs they need to live their dream. See, if there's people in your organization that have that self-doubt, what can they do? When they move forward, when they get the breakthroughs, other people will see what's happening, see their breakthroughs, and start asking them.
They saw where I started and they saw how I was improving, and they wanted that for themselves as well.
So by applying this simple strategy, it will change the trajectory of your whole organization. Not just the life of the individual, not just helping bring their dream to reality, but it will permeate through the whole organization. So as you can tell, I love this, and I would love to speak to your audience and inspire them with the passion and enthusiasm I have, and most importantly, with the simple strategy that they can put to use to get the breakthroughs they need. 17 minutes to your dream.
Can I tell you how awesome it is to...
I'm gonna stop it right there. And with that, I just want to welcome up Mr. Darren LaCroix. Darren, are you out there?
Here.
All right, Darren, it's such an honor to have you here on our podcast.
And Michael, thank you for paying my mortgage.
Hey, Darren, we're so excited to have you delivering your keynote on 17 Minutes to Your Dream. This is an amazing book. If you haven't read this book, I encourage you to read this book multiple times. Very, very wonderful book. So, Darren, welcome to District 40 here.
Hey, I'm psyched. I'm happy to go back to Ohio, OH.
Ohio.
Well, some of us are Michigan fans, so we don't say that.
Whatever.
So, Darren, we have a few questions for you, really a lot of questions for you. But before we get into any like serious questions, I would love to hear about, and on your website, you say you're from Auburn, Massachusetts. So what was it like growing up there?
June and Ward Cleaver were my mom and dad.
Yeah, I remember hearing about how your parents have been married for over 60 years.
Yeah, funny thing, I was at District 33 in Boston last year, and I got my dad, who is 91 years old. He's in the audience, really quiet guy. And I had a picture, and I was making a point about him and my mom been married. And I said, you know, round of applause for my dad. You know, him and my mom been married for 65 years. And he just yells out, 67. If you knew him, it's hysterical because he never speaks up. I got heckled by my own dad.
It never stops, huh?
Never stops. I love him. Yeah, super fortunate. It's a suburb of Boston, so I don't really have the Boston accent unless I'm really tired or I have a beer or two. Then I stop parking the car.
Awesome. So, Darren, you're going to be sharing your keynote, 17 Minutes to Your Dream. So what inspired you to write this book?
Quite honestly, it was... I had that big, crazy, ridiculous dream that I wanted to be a comedian. And through that, I found Toastmasters and I found speaking. I didn't even know what a speaker was, but I changed lanes from comedy over to speaking. And I realized that's my passion. That's where I want to be. And I want to do it full time, you know, for a living. And it took me until 2001 when I won the world championship. So I had this big, crazy, ridiculous dream. I made it happen. And in 2012, so 11 years later, I was speaking to Toastmasters in Vancouver, Canada. And this kid, after my program, I did my program. He said, you know, that was really inspiring. That's great. But what are you working on now? What's your big dream now? Great question. For all of us, how dare we try to motivate others if we're not striving for a big, crazy, ridiculous dream ourselves? Our kids are watching. Yeah, they hear what you say, but they're watching what you do and they learn from what you do. And so it was a great question, but I had an answer. And I was sitting at a mastermind at a little brew house here in Las Vegas with some of my friends. And one of my speaking mentors came to town, moved to town, and we were going around and he's going around the table. He says, what's your big, crazy, ridiculous dream? What's your big, crazy, ridiculous dream? And he got to me and I found myself like shrinking like a little kid. I'm like, why am I having a visceral reaction to this? This is crazy. And he got to me and he said, what's your big, crazy, ridiculous dream, Darren?
And I started hemming and hawing like, well, you know, I love the movie Rudy and it inspired me when I wanted to be a comedian, but I wasn't talented. I wasn't funny, but he kept getting up and I kept getting up. And I've been telling my story around the world. What if they made a movie about my story? But who am I to have a movie made about me? He slammed his hands on the table, got right in my face. He said, who are you not to? Who are you not to have your dream? And in that moment, my next dream was born. And so I thought, okay, what worked for me before when I was the underdog? And how could I apply that same strategy to this new, big, crazy, ridiculous dream where I'm the underdog again? And so I was visiting my parents back in Boston. I live in Las Vegas now. And I was staying at my sister's house and I just woke up and I had just done. So those people you saw the video of, I wrote an article that was in Toastmaster magazine about the 77-day challenge. Some of you know my mantra is stage time, stage time, stage time. Any day that you don't get on stage is the day you don't grow. Well, in the middle of COVID, how do you get on stage? So I challenged my students. I said, okay, do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live or YouTube Live every day. Do one a day for 77 days. And I promise you, you'll find your voice. You'll become more conversational. You will grow because of it. And that's what those people in the video were talking about. They took me up on the challenge and they did it and they grew. See, I love Toastmasters, but if you're doing one prepared speech every 6 months, you'll never be world class. I love you. I'm glad you come, but you're never going to be world class. Like, think about it. An Olympic athlete, if they said, you know, I work out once a month, but really hard. Okay, that's great, but you're never going to win a gold. You'll be lucky if you make the team. So I looked at that and I'm just, this 77-day challenge really worked. And I'm sitting at my sister's house. I woke up and I was like, oh, I have to write a book. I have to take this concept and put it into a book because I needed breakthroughs. And the challenge is a lot of us have those goals, but they make the goal the goal. I want to make the breakthrough the goal. Just like you saw in the video, if I get a breakthrough, I am invincible for a little while. Like, you can't take me down. I am invincible for a little while. And so if I can just keep getting breakthroughs, I'm going to keep going. But if only the goal is the thing that's going to motivate you, you're going to have some tough times and you're probably not going to have that momentum. So I literally came back home to Vegas. There's this place called Lake Las Vegas. I went every day for 17 days and I wrote the whole book in 17 days. And I had to get it like had to bubble out of me. And I kid you not, I just got a text 2 days ago. I spoke to a little club. I was out in Utah. I was giving a speech there. So I always call Toastmasters locally. I say, hey, I'm going to be in town. So I did a speech in Cedar City, Utah. And there was like 30 Toastmasters there. It was the day before the conference I was at starting. And a kid texted me 2 days ago. And I did this speech that I'm doing for District 40. And Michael, I kid you not, he texted me and said, I have been meaning to write a book for years. I started applying your 17-minute strategy and I'm on day 4 and I can't believe I'm finally doing it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Like, that's why I do this, just to get people. I mean, look, we all have self-doubt. Me too. I don't know how to sell a movie script. I have no idea, but I'm trying to figure it out. It took me 9 years to write it. Now I'm trying to sell it. I don't know how. When we're little kids, we don't know. We don't worry about the how. And I think that's one of our challenges. We think we have to have everything in line. Nope. You just need to do something today.
Love it. Love it. Great book. And I did the 77-day challenge as well. It is a game changer. I remember when Mike Davis started doing the lives a couple years back when you instructed him to do it. And I was like, man, how is he going live every single day? But I know once you do it, you come up with content. So thank you so much for sharing that. I have more questions, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to the team. Let them ask some questions, and I'll come back with some of mine.
All right, bring it.
So I'll pass it. Bertina, let you go next.
All right. Hi, Darren. My name is Bertina. I am 1/4 of this podcast. As you know, my question, I'm going to stay with the 17-minute book. And what I would like you to do is, can you share about the key takeaways that you talk about in your book?
Thank you. Yeah, there's 3 basic takeaways, and then there's a few more lessons to learn. But one of the things I say is you are the CEO of your dream. We have that doubt. Some people live other people's dream, or what our parents want us to do. Well, you're the CEO of your dream. It's your life. I have a mug on my desk that reminds me, I am the CEO of my dream. You can delegate, you can listen, you can not listen, you can hire people, you can fire people who influence you, but you're the CEO. And once you take responsibility, once you understand that, you can't delegate the CEO part. And look, I work for me. Sometimes I'm not the best employee for myself, even though I'm the CEO. And here's the thing, you got to decide. So one of the points that I'm going to talk about and really nail is, until you decide, nothing changes. Do you want to be a world-class, and I'll use in Toastmasters, I'll use speaker, presenter, or leader, either one. Do you want to be a world-class leader? Do you want to be a world-class presenter? Decide. Until you decide, nothing changes. However, once you decide, you think and act differently. I mean, think about it. Martina, have you ever had a time in your life where you said enough is enough?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not going to, it could be very personal. So for everyone, I'm not asking what it is, but think about it. You've had that time in your life when you said enough is enough. And guess what happened? You made a decision.
Yes.
You made a decision that I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm not going to accept this anymore. I'm going to have barriers, whatever it is. And that's when everything changes. We think and act differently. So we've got to decide. We've got to decide, number one. Then number two is we need a strategy. What's that strategy? What are you going to do? What's your methodology? And so what I'll be talking about is my 17-minute strategy that every single day, if you pull out your phone and you open it up to stopwatch, this is, right out of the book. I open it up to stopwatch and I say, okay, I'm going to focus for 17 minutes. Shut off all your TVs, shut off the radio. Boom. Exactly. Thank you, Johnny. I switched over. But you start that going and you just focus for 17 minutes. You're going to realize 17 minutes is, people ask me why 17. 17 minutes is enough to make progress, long enough to make progress. However, it's short enough to commit to every day. Short enough to commit to every day. I can do a Netflix TV show. Half-hour TV show is only 22 minutes. If your dream isn't worth less than a Netflix show, you need to find your dream first. Because that's going. And now here's the thing. It's not to just do 17 minutes, but when you're done, I would hit stop and I would have 2 accountability partners. I would take a screenshot of where I left off and I would send it to them. So I got permission every day. So number one is the strategy, at least 17 minutes. And I was just talking to that gentleman, the Toastmaster from Utah today. I said, hey, there's days that you're just going to do 17 minutes. That's okay. I call those momentum days. I want to get caught up and do 20, 30, 40, an hour and a half. That's what I want. And if I get started, I will get caught up most days. So some days it's 30 minutes, some days it's 40. I take a screenshot, I send it to my friend. I take a screenshot, I send it to my friend. Now you have to pick the right people. So number one, decide. Number two, strategy. Number three, the goal is momentum. Momentum. And Sarah, who is one of my accountability buddies, I sent her a 17-minute and 10-second one. She said, looks like you're busy today. Boom. But you got 17 minutes in. So that's a momentum day. And as long as I do that, I'll keep going. If I stop, it's just like working out. You stop, and then you have an excuse for a day, and then a second, and then you're done. Like, Just keep, even if you sit there and watch your phone for 17 minutes, that counts. Not great, but it counts. That's your question.
Thank you. And I'll pass it on over. Let's go to Johnny.
Well, welcome, Darren, to District 40. I appreciate you stopping by. I want to let the audience know that Darren is not, this is not an act, Darren being energetic and friendly. And the reason I'm going to say this is before a little anecdote. In 2019, at the start of the pandemic, I decided I wanted to do a podcast, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was just asking people to be on my podcast. It was called the Purpose Podcast. I reached out to Darren. He's a world champion of public speaking. He's a paid presenter. And I reached out and I said, would you be on my podcast? And I was thinking, he's just going to blow me off. He's busy, blase, blase, blase. Where his secretary called me back or responded back to my message and said, Darren would be interested in joining your podcast. He doesn't know me from anybody. I'm not heading a district conference. I'm not even in a district leadership. And he agrees to do a person who's been doing a podcast for 4 months for free, for absolutely free. I scheduled it. I'll never forget. I scheduled it for 10:30 at night because I know he lives on the West Coast. And he responds, isn't that a little late for you? Not only was he doing it for free, he was concerned about my time. So I just want to say thank you very much for being an awesome human being. And just to convey to District 40, come out to the conference to see him because everything he is saying, he means, and it is 100% authentic. So with that being said, I just had to throw that out there. So with that being said, my question is, what is your process from taking a presentation from right here, where it's up in your mind, to when you actually hit the stage? I know it's probably a lot of variables in there, but high level, what's your process from the mental to actual bringing the presentation to fruition?
Thank you. Great question. And I'm glad I was nice to you. That's cool. It was the pandemic too. I had some time on my hands. But you're welcome. And hey, you're a Toastmaster brother. If I can help out, I will. All right. So great question. And everyone's process is different. So even though I say, here's my process, yes, I won the world championship, but you ask Mark Brown, his process, world champion David Brooks, his process, world champion Ed Tate, they each have their own. And the key is you got to figure out your own, what works for you. So for me, when I started 17 Minutes to Your Dream, I like to write by presenting, meaning I get an idea and it's got to, I have a coach called Jennifer Leone. She's a Toastmaster and a world-class coach from Australia. And she says, you need to find the fire in your belly. You need to find the fire in your belly. What's that thing you're passionate about? Otherwise, if you don't find the subject that you're passionate about, you're going to work you're not going to work really hard because you don't really have the passion in the belly. So I'll back up a half a step. When I started working with Mark Brown on Ouch, my championship speech, he asked me a question. He said, okay, if you were going to choose a child in your life, and I don't have any children, so I chose my eldest nephew, Michael. He said, if you were going to die tomorrow, what one lesson that you learned from your life would you want to pass on to Michael? And I started answering. He's like, no. Grab a pad of paper, write it down. Write down every lesson you've ever learned. And some of them are going to be cliche. Just write them down because one could lead to another. So it was 3/4 of the way down the third page that I wrote, willing to fail. I became a comedian because I was willing to fail. And when I thought about it, if I couldn't give Michael all these other lessons, if I could give him that one, that would be worth it. So willing to fail became my working title, if you will. Eventually it turned into Ouch. But first is, what's that subject that you care about? Now, what I love is, for me, I'm a bullet point guy. I just get the ideas, put it in bullet points, and I don't write out my speech. I don't write it out at the beginning. I don't write it out word for word. When I started working with Mark, he said, okay, you have to transcribe your speech. If you're not going to write it out, you got to transcribe it. I was like, that I could do. I can't sit down and just type out a speech. I'm not a writer like that. I can express it in front of an audience, passionate, and then take it, the recording, and go back and transcribe it. And so my original version of Ouch, original version, was 1,492 words.
Oh.
And it, for everyone, if you're listening, it has to be about 750. So first thing is, and I see a lot of people who write, and I'll just use the 5 to 7 minute as the metaphor, whether 45 minutes or 5 to 7, it's just a length of time. Process is pretty similar. So I transcribed it and I looked at it and I thought I was good. I really did. And if you know the story, Michael, you're probably laughing. When I handed Mark the first version of the story, he's like, and if you don't know Mark, he's 6'2", native of Jamaica, this beautiful booming laugh like the guy from the old 7-Up commercial. That's Mark. He looked at the first version of his speech. Oh, Daddy, we have some work to do. What? I wrote the greatest speech that I could write from the level I was at. But you don't know what you don't know. So I took the 1,492 word and I looked at it in text on my screen. Oh, kind of boring. But here was the key question. How do I say it better in fewer words? How do I say it better in fewer words? That became the question that helped me make it tighter and tighter and tighter. So I would send Mark the word count. Hey, Mark, got it down to 1,152. Hey, Mark, got it down to 997. Hey, Mark, got it down to 981. And so I would celebrate as it got tighter and stronger. So that's kind of my process. When I'm working on a 45-minute keynote speech, I'll have 3 or 4 bullet points. And one of the things that we teach and I use is called a foundational phrase. What are those sticky phrases that will resonate with the audience, that encapsulates a point? Probably the most famous foundational phrase in Toastmasters is Dhananjaya Hadarachi's world champion. We said, I see something in you. I don't know what it is. And you hear that in the hallways because it's so powerful and so meaningful. But for you and I, for our presentations, what's that message you're trying to stick? Nothing matters what happens in the moment. Anything you say, like that moment while you're delivering it, it doesn't matter what happens in that moment. It matters the seeds you plant in that moment that people carry on in life. So what I'm going for, to answer your question, Johnny, what I'm going for is when I ask for feedback. If you're watching this, I probably won't cover this in the keynote. So if you're watching this, take notes. Here's the 4 questions I ask the audience when I'm getting feedback, because we are the CEO of our speech. So what is it that we want feedback on? So I ask people, what inspired you? And I'm looking for commonalities. I don't care what one person says. What inspired you? That way I know if I hear mom and dad's story, mom and dad's story, mom and dad's story, I know that works. So what inspired you? Number 2, what made you think? What made you think? The most important part of a presentation is the thought process in the listener's mind. It's not what we say, it's what they think about what we say. It's not our opening, it's what they think about our opening. Question number 3, what wasn't clear? 99% of what I coach is clarity, clarity, clarity. So what wasn't clear? I got to know that because it might be a great point. It just got a little muddled. And then 4, what else stood out? What else stood out? And so even though we're Toastmasters and our audience is programmed to give feedback, we have to know what feedback we want. We have to, let's just say, choreograph the feedback. Because a lot of people will give you random feedback that doesn't matter, but I'm looking for commonalities. So when I was working on the early versions of 17 minutes, one of the foundational phrases is, you are the CEO of your dream. So that became so sticky
that I made a mug because it worked. And it was the ultimate of what I was trying to say. So I turned it into a mug. One of the other ones was I talk about the story of Jonah and the whale. And I say, have you been swallowed by the whale of self-doubt? And I can almost hear a collective, ooh. And that's how I know it worked. So I will refine and tighten. And so it's a process. I don't sit down and write. I deliver it. I see what worked. I make tweaks and adjustment. I deliver it again. I deliver it again. I deliver it again. That's why I love Toastmasters. It's the greatest place to make mistakes. So I'm not going to do a brand new speech on a high paid keynote, but I'll work out the kinks until it works at Toastmasters before I bring it to the paid stage. That answer your question, Johnny?
Yeah, sir. Thank you very much. And I'll pass it over to Althea.
Thank you so much, Johnny. Darren, great to be with you this evening. I have so many notes here from just what you've been able to share and talk about planting seeds. But for me, what stands out most is inspiration. You're the CEO of your dream, the passion in your belly. Like those things stand out to me. Those things resonate with me. So I'm curious to know from you, can you share with us a memorable moment or maybe a challenge that you encountered on the stage and how you were able to weave your way through a challenging moment or to celebrate a memorable moment on the stage?
Great question. So many things come to mind. I was just speaking at a Christian women's conference, a retreat in Utah this weekend. And you and I have to remember every time we get on stage, it's a privilege. And I will tell you, I've had times my ego gets in the way. My opinion, two biggest problems in speaking is at the beginning, self-doubt. After you get some applause, ego. Self-doubt and ego. That we think we're good enough. We think we're good. People ask for our autograph. And I remember the night before the World Championship, Mark saw, so I was one of 8. I had a good shot at this. And Mark saw my ego and my head growing. And he grabbed me and brought me down to earth by asking this question. He said, Darren, tomorrow morning, you have the privilege of 2,000 lives for 7 minutes. What will you do with that?
Wow.
And to this day, I remind myself that same question. Today, the 5 of us, however many people are watching, we have the privilege of 1 hour of their time. What will we do with that? And if you care about your audience, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's like, what do they need? What do they need? So this weekend, I was speaking at the women's conference, and I know that there's people out there with challenges. I mean, somebody in your audience had just been diagnosed with cancer. Their kids are diagnosed with cancer. Their son committed suicide, whatever we don't know. They're smiling on the outside, but on the inside, something's hurting. So I was telling my story, the least likely story. I was the least likely person to ever win the world championship, in my opinion. Now, most of the world champions would probably tell you that, and that's okay. But I'm telling my least likely story. It's a Christian story about how God helped me go from shy, quiet, unfunny introvert to winning the championship with a very funny speech. Anyway, I realized that this conference theme was about walking on water. And forgive me if this is not a God thing. I'm just using this as a specific example and a metaphor for something I did with my audience. So I don't mean to offend anyone, just the situation. So I knew that they were talking about having the courage to get out of the boat. So Peter got out of the boat and he started walking towards Jesus and eventually started sinking because of doubt. So I'm asking people, okay, who has that big, crazy, ridiculous dream and it's really scary to them? And so I'm asking them to raise their hand, but I'm looking for that first person who has the courage in front of 100 other people to say they're scared. Okay, so I phrased the question to make it that they have to have courage just to raise their hand in front of a group of people.
And I walk off stage, I walk out and I look the woman dead in the eye. And I said, you got this. You, like, right in their face in front of everyone. And almost always when I do this, and you have to mean it, by the way, but I saw something change in her. If you want, I have a video from her. Because I got a testimonial from her after. By the way, all of us should be collecting testimonials. And since this was a subject I haven't done in 5 years, I took a sermon that I did and I rebuilt it. Again, the principle is the same. People in your audience, they need hope. They need encouragement. That's part of why they need us. So going out into the audience, breaking that barrier and literally speaking into someone. And it was so powerful. So where in your presentation could you break that fourth wall and go out into the audience and sincerely look in somebody's eye and speak to their soul? How's that for an example?
I think that's incredible.
Awesome.
I'll pass things back to Michael.
All right. So I'll keep things rolling here. So Darren, and obviously I've seen you do this. Definitely have modeled this, but you've had experience giving the same speech probably hundreds of times. How do you maintain the same level of enthusiasm and that same feeling of I'm giving this like it's the first time to this audience? How do you maintain that for you?
It's a great question. I see a lot of people who get jaded, mail it in, if you will. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so important to find that subject that is the fire in the belly. When you find that and you realize, yeah, I've given this 100 times. I gave this same speech yesterday, but today, these people have never seen it. So, for example, when Mark said, choose your nephew, because I said my nephew's the closest one that I could think of. He said, every time you present, put him in the fourth row. In your mind, put him in the fourth row and deliver it to him like it's your last time. And when you can deliver like it's your last time, because guess what? Most of the time we speak, unless it's our own Toastmaster Club, we're not going to see a lot of these people ever again. This is our one opportunity to influence them. Look, I'm not perfect. I'm just saying, here's the mindset I try to put on every single time. So when you go for that intention for the audience, the secret ingredient to any great presentation is intention. We can sense your intention. If you're up there being slick and you're just trying to sell us on your book in the back of the room, guess what? We'll sense that. But I know that woman that I walked out into the audience, she will probably never forget that moment. And we have to remember that there's people in front of us that are hurting. And if we love presenting, if this is something we truly love doing, there's no such thing as a practice audience. I'll give you an example. Now, I used to think there was. So I'm working on, let's say, version 13 out of 22 before I delivered 23 on the stage in Anaheim for the World Championship. So I'm at an MIT Toastmaster Club at MIT in Boston. There's just a Toastmaster Club. And I delivered the speech. And this foreign exchange student came up to me after. She spoke very broken English. And she looked me in the eye. Now, I'm just there to get feedback to make it better. I'm just there to get feedback and make it better. She looked me in the eye and she said, I'm failing out of MIT. I called my family. They said I should quit and go home. I heard your speech. I stay. That's when I realized there's no such thing as a practice speech. Even at Toastmasters, at your club, somebody's in front of you, somebody's hurting, and we must take the privilege of the platform seriously. If this is what we choose to do. Now, if it's just a hobby, then fine. Just have fun with it. It's a hobby. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you choose to be on the path to world class, I don't care how many are in front of you, if it's 3 people or 3,000, there's someone hurting that needs you. And you could be the difference between them going home and committing suicide or not. Them going home and yelling at their kids and taking out their kids, their own self-insecurities. We got to remember the privilege.
Powerful,
We
powerful.
do have a couple questions in the chat. The District 40 audience, they are eager to ask you questions. And we've got Jennifer Christo, sorry if I pronounced it incorrectly. It says, how do you overcome a lack of credentials?
You let it go. You let it go. And I understand that. It's a valid question. I live there too. Those of you, let me just ask you here. I know this wasn't a question coming from one of you guys or gals, but let me ask you. Do you think Tony Robbins is pretty credible and worth listening to, whether you like him or not?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you know this or not, but NLP was his thing. He went and took a class on NLP. He was out of his flippin' mind after day one, how he could help people. He went across to a bar across the street when the day one of training was over and started using what he learned to help people quit smoking. Like just walked up to people in a bar and started using some of what he learned. He got kicked out. He never became a certified NLP trainer. And how many of us ever look at his credentials? Well, did he get his DTM or not? Look, I'm all for credentials. I'm all for going for it. It builds your resume. However, don't you dare think you need it. You're alive. You lived it. I want to hear you talk about what you lived. Please stop quoting, as I quote Patricia Fripp, my mentor. She said, stop quoting dead white men. Like, I don't care if you have a quote book. I want to hear Michael Pope talk about what he learned from his grandmother. I want to hear Althea speak about what she learned from her music teacher. Tell us about people we don't know. But I get it. As a newer Toastmaster, we're insecure. That's one of the reasons we come to Toastmasters. Everybody laughs. Everybody claps, even if we're horrible. I love that. However, don't be using quotes to add to your credibility. Like this person said it. Well, they back up my point. No, stop, please. I see even in contests, 3 or 4 quotes, but none of them are original. None of them are from their life. And some people say, but Darren, you quoted Brian Tracy. Yes, I did. However, I live my life this way. I heard the quote and I live my life this way. So the quote was transformational in my life. Look, if there's a quote that was transformational, then yeah, use it. However, don't use quotes just to back up your point. We've got to figure this out. We've got to find our voice. And you do that by stage time, stage time, stage time.
And we have one more question in the chat. It's from our district director, Lavinia Boyer. And she says, how do you not let haters quench your fire?
I believe we need naysayers in our life.
Yep.
And they are tests. When we can look at it as they're just a test, then we can like check it off. Oh, I'm being tested. Okay. Look, I had someone, when I was pursuing my dream, I lived at home because of my Subway business failure. I lived at home until I was 35, I think, 35 years old. Someone in my close circle called my parents and told them to kick me out because I was paying very little rent. I was digging out of a debt. I had a day job as I pursued speaking, but they said, kick him out so he has to grow up. That's painful. And honestly, I get it. I get the perspective. It didn't look like I was making a lot of traction and like I was going to be able to support myself from speaking anytime soon. So I get it. I understand it. I had to forgive that. But when I look at the bigger picture, it's just a test to see if you're serious. So guess what? If you don't have naysayers, you haven't found your voice yet. When you find your voice, you're going to have some people who disagree with you. I think, Michael, this is in the book too. I did a webinar on how to get paid to speak. And it was a free webinar
where we gave 59 minutes of content and then we pitched our Stage Time University. So we'll teach you, you can be mentored by us. So it was free with the intention that, hey, those of you who are serious, you can then come join us and we'll mentor you. And yeah, there's a cost to that. Well, 2 days later, I give people 48 hours to watch the webinar, the training for free. And one guy sent me an email 48 hours later, said, and I'm cleaning it up a little bit, but he basically said, there's more free information than I can find on the internet. You are just a snake oil salesman. This is all BS. What's the blah, blah, blah. It was free. And he's complaining. Another guy in text, an email, yelled at me saying, you need to tell me ahead of time that I only have 48 hours to watch this. I did. He didn't read it. And it was like, this should be at our convenience, not your convenience. There's another one. The webinar was super successful. We had gained many members. So look, if you don't want to join, that's fine, but you're going to complain about a free training? I'm just saying that as a solid example that even though I do this for a living, this is what I love to do, even though I have good intentions, you will have naysayers. They're essential. They're just a test to see if you're serious.
Wow.
Love it. Any more questions, Johnny, from the audience?
We do have one more from Dr. Shirley. She asked, who is that one person or audience that you would like to impact, but as yet not have?
Say that one more time.
Who is that one person or audience that you would like to impact, but have not as of yet?
Yeah, I was out of my mind this weekend speaking to that Christian audience, and it's only like the third one I've ever done in 30 years. I'd love to do more of that because I feel like that's what I'm called to do. And we have a podcast, if anyone listening wants to check it out, called Unforgettable Presentations, where he helped presenters and pastors to deliver their message. Because I'm not selling God here. I'm just telling you, answering the question. Here's what I believe and I think. So I would love to do more of that. On a different twist to it, Rory Vaden, who is a former Toastmaster, who used to be one of my students, and he has far surpassed his mentor. He came in second, I think, twice in the World Championship in the early 2000s. I love this. Get this. He says, you are uniquely qualified to help the person you used to be. And what that means is, what's your story? One of my students, her name is Rena. She dealt with abuse. She gave a powerful TEDx talk on overcoming abuse. Because that's what she survived. So I think we all have those stories, those deep, dark stories in our life. Look, if you choose to be a presenter, you got to go deep. There's something. And Craig Valentine and Patricia Fripp say, look, you want to find your gold, you have to go to those dark places in your life. The places you don't want to go. But that's where your gold is. If you choose to be a speaker, there's something in your life. That's your topic. Every year around this time, contest season time, people say, what's the winning formula? I don't know. I don't know you. There's no winning formula. It's what's that fire in the belly in you that's got you jazzed. Just like when Mark said, if you're going to die tomorrow, what one lesson you learned from your life would you pass on? Well, that's going to be the five of us here. We all have different ones. And it's finding yours, figuring out yours. That's where the gold is. That's where the power is.
Okay. And that's all we have from the chat. So turn it back over to you, Michael.
Right. Althea, Darren, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll turn it back over to Althea to close us out. You can do final words and all tips.
Well, so Darren, I did have a follow-up question, but you, for me, have answered the question. That question was going to be, if there was a Toastmaster who was this close to considering not renewing their membership, I feel, personally, after listening to this episode, you would inspire them to continue their journey in becoming a better communicator and a better leader. And I just appreciate you being an example of this work and how you can have something fail and then that same thing propel you into this arena where you can inspire so many people to achieve their goals. So on behalf of District 40, I want to sincerely thank you for being a part of our podcast episode. And we are looking forward to seeing you in April. I know it's going to be dynamic and I can't wait to meet you in person. But thank you so much for being with us this evening. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Just to add, if you guys enjoyed this and you're talking about 17 minutes to your dreams, the District 40 Conference is coming up April 26th through the 28th. If you are one of the first 50 people to register for the conference, District 40 is giving you a free copy of 17 Minutes to Your Dream. So, if you didn't have enough incentive already, go out there and make it done quickly once registration opens, and you will win a free copy of Darren's book.
That's amazing.
That sounds like a winner to me.
Thank you all for having me. Thanks for what you do in district leadership. It matters. It makes a difference. I know there's countless hours of volunteering and putting up with some naysayers that you have to deal with and who forget your volunteers and not paid staff. So thank you for what you do. Look for, you don't have, I'll say it. You can't say it. I get it. That's why I'm saying it. I'm saying it for you, service back to you. So thanks for what you do. And thanks for putting up with some of the wacky people. And thanks for having me here. I look forward to being in OHIO and hey, Detroit. So you're a Detroit fan, Johnny?
Yes, sir. The Lions. We're going
Congrats on the Lions.
2 more
Congrats
days.
on the Lions.
National championship.
But they're going up against those 49ers. Watch out now.
Another team.
It's been great. I can't wait. I'm so pumped now.
Well, with that, we would bid you guys farewell, District 40. Until next month, we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
So long.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Darren.
Stage time.
Yes, yes.
Thanks, Darren, again.